My name is Nicholas Alexander Cortez Perez, and I would love to celebrate machismo, but sadly, that hasn't been earned yet. Now, I welcome you guys on this journey with me, where each and every week we're going to talk about how to heal, how we can create healthy images of masculinity, and hopefully, we can get to the point where we can redefine machismo. What's up, mi gente? Welcome to the very first episode of Redefining Machismo. Much like you heard in the intro, I'm your host, Nicholas Alexander Cortez Perez. I hope all of you guys are enjoying your week. Right now, I'm taking a little advantage that both of my kids are with their tata, so I'm able to work on some content and just really enjoy some time alone. Today, I wanted to start off with a topic that's very close to my heart, and that topic is fatherhood. It's something that has caused a type of revelation in my life. As a 35-year-old man with twin daughters, I live a life a way that I never really pictured myself living. My mornings involve making peanut butter sandwiches or pancakes, tying moños, doing my girls' hair, stuffing snacks into their book bags, and making sure that they have everything they need to start their school day. And before dropping them off, I tell them something that I once heard from John Bernthal. I tell them to be brave. I tell them to be kind, to be beautiful, and to be bold. Something at 7 they most likely don't really understand yet, but hopefully soon they'll be able to grasp it. Fatherhood can be such a tricky thing. You're literally responsible for another human being. The way that you raise them can have a direct impact and an effect on so many people that they're going to end up interacting with in their lives. No matter how well everybody might say that I'm doing, I constantly find myself questioning my choices and how will they be affected by them. So many of us leave the raising of our kids, especially our daughters, to the mother. And as the man that my father raised me to be, that was never going to be an option for me. Now, the stereotypical machista might try to implement certain gender roles on their kids. The girls wash the dishes, the boys cut the grass, the girls wear this and play with these toys, and the boys do the opposite. And it's shit like that, seeing it with my own eyes, especially as part of my culture, the Puerto Rican culture, the Latino culture, is what made me want to do this podcast to begin with. All of these backward ass ideologies of how we should raise our kids or how should we raise our girls versus our boys has caused so many problems that could have been avoided if we just sat down with each other, let go of what society says that we should tell our kids or how we should raise them, especially when we don't even really agree with that shit to begin with. I understand that it's highly important to prepare our kids for this fucked up world that we're coming into, but the way that we choose to do so will have a significant impact on them as they get older. I was blessed to have a dad that never made me feel like I couldn't show my emotions or cry in front of him. The funny thing about that is I ended up picking all that up as I got older because of the environment that I was raised in. You see, I was born in Far Rockaway, New York, but I was raised between New York and Puerto Rico. And what a lot of people might consider to be the hood, Far Rockaway, it's a tough place. And although my dad was heavy on machismo in a lot of aspects, he never once made me feel like I had to have this front or be somebody that I wasn't. That shit really didn't even happen until I got older, until I started going through junior high and high school. My dad used to be in gangs with my uncles, and they were like the stereotype that most Latin men have or are. They were womanizers, so of course I grew up idolizing the men that I saw in my everyday life. These men that were tough, rugged, they didn't play any games, they were quick to throw the hands if the situation deemed so, and they were always surrounded by women. I saw that, and without ever telling me that that was what a man was supposed to look like, my brain made the connections that their actions told me. Now, I won't lie and say as soon as I had my daughters, all these views changed immediately. But them coming into this world definitely was the catalyst for me to begin to change my views on so many issues. If I had 2 boys instead of 2 girls, there's a big chance that I would not be here right now in front of this mic trying to talk with you guys about the world we live in and how we need to take a stand to be an active member for change. But fortunately, I did have girls. So we'll never really know what that Nicholas might have been doing right now. Now, Like I said, growing up and being raised in between New York and Puerto Rico, I got to see many sides of machismo, and we're seeing directly the effects on our generation by what's happening in our everyday life. In Puerto Rico, domestic abuse is on the rise. Violence, plain and simple, is on the rise. It has been for years now. We have this image of being a man is to not let anyone fuck with you. And between the media that we consume that romanticizes this image, it isn't hard to see how we could have landed in the predicament that we are. So many young boys are being raised without positive role models. You're being raised in quotes by the rappers that they idolize, that in so many ways don't even live the life that they're rapping about. And I don't want to single out rappers because it's really not their fault. A lot of them are just victims of how the system has failed us, how society has formed us. You see, it's a vicious circle that will continue to go round and round until we make the decision to put a stop to it. You see, I want my daughters, my nieces, my nephews to grow up without the same image of what a man is or supposed to be that I grew up with. And to do that, we have to start by asking ourselves that question. What is a man? And what does that mean in the conversation of fatherhood? Today, being a father doesn't only mean making sure the food is on the table and the roof is over your child's head. Just being the provider doesn't cut it if we want to make the change. We need to show up for them in ways that might be unfamiliar to us because we might not have had these examples when we were growing up. It's not easy to break these cycles when you might not even be aware of them or how deeply rooted they are in us. I think the most important thing to do really has nothing to do with our kids, sino with ourselves. First, let's ask ourselves, what type of relationship did we wish we had with our fathers? What did we wish we could hear from them? And what do we wish we could have said to them or done with them? You see, we need to take a look at our childhood and see what were the things missing that we might not have realized affected us. For years, I really was of the mindset that unlike so many of the people that were around me that struggled with their traumas, I was free of them because I really didn't have any. I either dismissed them as things that could have been so much more worse as they were for a lot of the other kids that I grew up with, or I didn't even really acknowledge them at all. It wasn't until a moment in my life where I was at rock bottom and I was left with no choice but to change. To get better, I had to look into my past and question things. Why am I the way I am? What moments, events, patterns caused me to think the way that I do? My parents, like many parents around the world, were very busy with work. So they could give me and my sister a better childhood than the ones that they were had. Maybe the lack of attention that I didn't get, or better said, that I didn't perceive that I got from my dad, maybe that was one of the things I guess made me put value into what or how I could make other people feel. I was always the class clown. I was one of the loudest kids in my friends group, and maybe I was feeding on all of that attention that brought because I felt like I wasn't getting that amount that I wanted at home. My father was functionally addicted to coke when I was a kid. He never abused me verbally or physically. He always kept food on the table, hot water in the bathroom, a roof over my head. My dad was there to support me in any adventure that I ever wanted to do. My dad always loved me. He always told me he loved me. He verbalized it. And he always said that he was proud of me. My pops would also disappear from time to time, mostly for 2 or 3 day weekends. He would get out of work on a Friday. Sometimes I wouldn't see him again until Monday. He would promise to take us places and last minute bail, things that I never really felt bad about myself for, or at least I never let myself feel bad about it. I always just took it on the chin. And it's not until now that I'm letting myself sit with these things and letting myself feel what I need to feel that I can see them for what it is. My dad had a lot of demons. He was battling with a lot of demons, some of which I'll probably never know the full truth behind. But my dad was always there in the moments that I needed him. My father never abandoned me. His dad abandoned him. Not once, but twice. My father's childhood was hectic, to say the least. Now, without excusing his actions, through compassion and empathy, I get to see a whole new side of my dad. So by looking back, I can see some of the things that affected me that I never really realized. Trauma I couldn't see that I was carrying. And with that new perception, I know what things I can work on with my own children, what doors I can open to them that I would have wished in retrospect were open to me. The impact that we have on our kids goes so much further than we might think. Habits, beliefs, so many aspects of who they are that are directly influenced by us, even when we think it's not. If we raise our boys around the thought that their worth is proportionate to what they can bring to the table, then the moment that they feel that they have nothing to offer is the moment that we let them fall. Teaching them that being a man is stuffing your feelings as far down as possible because the world doesn't give a fuck about them is going to lead them to believe that they also shouldn't give a fuck about their feelings because they don't matter. Again, I understand the want to toughen our kids up for the world that they're about to encounter. But with that said, creating a belief in them that not sitting with their feelings is somehow going to make things easier or them stronger is actually going to do the opposite. To be vulnerable in a world where that's looked upon as being soft is actually incredibly strong. It's never easy going against the current. We have to teach our boys how to manage their feelings instead of shoving them down. They need to learn how to sit with them, acknowledge them for what they are, and not let these feelings control them. Now, that's so much easier said than done. I understand that. But if we start when they are young, the impact it's going to have once they get older is going to be immeasurable. To not have to start asking questions of who they are, why they are in their mid-30s, will leave us with a generation so far beyond what ours are. As a father, you want the best for your kids, and sometimes that means putting ourselves in very uncomfortable positions. When we are able to grow, we can teach them to grow as well. And just like the lessons we need to teach our boys, the ones we need to teach our daughters is not far behind. As human beings, we will always ask ourselves questions about our own worth. But as fathers, if we can start them off when they are just children with the tools to tell the difference between what people think of them and the actual value they bring to the world by just being themselves, we can possibly save so many lives. Like boys, our girls are also impacted greatly by false machismo. They grow up seeing the type of men we are, and that later on turns into what they look for in a partner. If we show them that being a man is cold, being distant, having many women, or if we choose to not focus on them and give them the attention that they both need and deserve, then they are going to look for that attention when they get older in all the wrong places. They are going to put value in that attention that they get from people that most likely won't really give a fuck about them, and it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to tell the difference between something authentic and something toxic if they are not given the example when they're kids. If your kid is going to be attracted to men, what qualities would you like that man to have? Well, those qualities, that's what you need to demonstrate to them when they're young. We need to set the example for how all men should strive to be in their lives. We have to set the bar. So let's give our kids a safe space to talk and feel like themselves. Let's make sure that we don't tell our boys that to be men, they need to do what society tells them that a man should do, or even what we tell them. Instead of telling them how to be a man, let's help them discover on their own terms what it's like to be, or what it is to be a man. Let's guide them through values and principles so that they can find out the man that they want to be and how they can get there. Let's teach them that compassion is worth more than clout, that empathy is worth more than the type of respect they get, or better said, the type of respect they think they'll get when people believe them to be tough, strong, or badass. Let's take the first step ourselves and pave the way so that our kids can walk it a little bit more comfortably. Let's lighten the path and redefine machismo into something that can be productive and of service to ourselves, to our families, and to our communities. All right, well, guys, thank you for tuning into the first episode of Redefining Machismo. If you enjoy the content, you can follow me on Instagram and Threads at _coach_Cortez. And you can find this podcast, Redefining Machismo, on Spotify and YouTube.